Hey, tonight we're going to journey back to ancient Rome. We'll discover how Julius Caesar survived what became known as the longest year in human history, a special year that lasted 445 days instead of the usual 365. It's a tale of brilliant thinking, power, triumph, and how the way we track time was forever changed. Hey, if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Now, find a cozy spot, take a slow, deep breath, and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the summer of 46 BCE in ancient Rome. The warm Mediterranean sun filters through the wooden shutters of your small apartment in the city. You stretch your arms above your head, feeling the pleasant ache of well-used muscles. The thin linen sheet feels light against your skin as you push it away and swing your feet onto the cool terracotta floor tiles. You can hear the city already bustling outside, vendors calling their wares, the clatter of wooden cartwheels on stone streets, the murmur of countless conversations. The scent of baking bread drifts through your window, making your stomach rumble. Another day in Rome, the center of the world's greatest empire. But this isn't just any day. There's excitement in the air, a feeling of anticipation that makes your skin tingle. After years of brutal civil war, the great general Julius Caesar is returning to Rome in triumph. You've heard rumors that he's conquered territories from Gaul to Egypt, that he's brought immense wealth back to Rome, and that he's about to be given unprecedented political power. You pull on your tunic, a simple garment made of undyed wool that falls to your knees. You splash water on your face from a clay basin, run damp fingers through your hair, and decide to skip breakfast. Today, you want to be among the crowds when Caesar enters the city. As you step outside, the full heat of the summer day envelops you like a heavy blanket. The narrow street is already crowded with people heading in the same direction, toward the city gates where Caesar will make his entrance. You join the flow, your sandals slapping against the paving stones as you walk. "Have you heard?" an older man asks, falling into step beside you. His face is weathered from years under the sun, and his hands look strong and calloused, marking him as a craftsman of some kind. "They say the Senate has made Caesar dictator for 10 years. 10 years, you reply, surprised. But the dictatorship is supposed to be a 6-month emergency position. The man shrugs, his tunic shifting across his shoulders. These aren't normal times. The Republic hasn't been working right for years. Too much fighting between the Optimates and the Populars. Too many ambitious men willing to lead armies against each other. You know he's right. The Roman Republic has been in trouble for decades. The traditional balance of power between the Senate, the consuls, and the people has broken down. Powerful generals like Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and now Caesar have shown that military might can override political tradition. As you wind through the streets toward the city gate, the crowd grows denser, pressing against you from all sides. The smell of unwashed bodies mingles with perfumes and cooking scents. Someone steps on your foot and you wince but say nothing. Everyone is pushing forward, trying to get a good view of the Via Sacra where Caesar will pass. Finally, you find a spot near a tall building where you can stand on a stone ledge to see over the heads of the crowd. The summer sun beats down mercilessly and sweat trickles down your back, but the discomfort fades as a distant roar announces Caesar's approach. First come the heralds and musicians, trumpets blaring a triumphant melody that makes your heart beat faster. Behind them roll huge wagons carrying paintings that depict Caesar's victories. You catch glimpses of battles in foreign lands, strange-looking enemies, and the mighty Roman legions in formation. More wagons follow, these laden with treasures beyond imagination, golden statues, silver platters, exotic animals in cages, piles of colourful fabrics, and chests that you assume are filled with coins. The crowd gasps and points. Never before has so much wealth entered Rome at once. Then come the prisoners, walking in chains. Most prominent among them is a tall, proud-looking man with wild red hair and a fierce gaze. Even in defeat, he carries himself with dignity. "That's Vercingetorix," someone whispers. "The king of the Gauls who almost drove Caesar out of their lands 6 years ago." You study the man with interest. So this is the great enemy who united the Gallic tribes against Rome. He looks neither savage nor simple, as Gauls are often portrayed in Roman stories. Instead, he seems regal despite his chains and the jeers of the crowd. And finally, here comes Caesar himself. He stands in a magnificent chariot pulled by 4 white horses. His toga is purple-bordered, marking his high rank, and a slave stands behind him, holding a golden laurel wreath above his head. Caesar is in his early 50s, his face lined but handsome, his hair receding but carefully arranged to hide it. He looks calm and confident, acknowledging the cheers of the crowd with a dignified wave. "Ave Caesar," the people around you shout. "Hail Caesar!" You join in, caught up in the excitement of the moment. This man has conquered Gaul, defeated his rivals in a civil war, and now returns to Rome at the height of his power. Whatever happens next, you're witnessing history, as Caesar's chariot makes its way along the sacred way. Passing the grand temples of Rome, something unexpected happens. One of the wheels on his chariot suddenly breaks, throwing Caesar onto the street. The crowd gasps collectively, then falls silent. For Romans, highly superstitious people, this is a terrible omen. It appears as if the goddess Fortuna, who had favoured Caesar through so many battles and close calls, has finally abandoned him. But Caesar, ever the quick thinker, simply stands up, brushes off his toga, and smiles reassuringly at the crowd. Within minutes, another chariot is brought forward and the procession continues. The moment of tension passes, but you notice people exchanging worried glances. In a city where political fortunes can change overnight, such signs are taken seriously. Later in the day, you hear that Caesar climbed the steps to the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on his knees, an unusual act of humility from such a powerful man. Perhaps he too was concerned about the broken chariot wheel and sought to appease the gods. As the day turns to evening, the city erupts in celebration. Wine flows freely in the taverns and food is distributed to the people. It's said that Caesar has given every Roman citizen the equivalent of 4 months' wages from his own pocket. No wonder the crowds love him, despite the misgivings of the traditional aristocracy. You find yourself in a crowded tavern near the Forum, sitting on a rough wooden bench and sipping watered wine from a clay cup. The room is warm with the heat of many bodies, and the air is thick with the smell of spilled wine, sweat, and the garlicky stew being served from a large pot. "I heard the soldiers singing some pretty interesting songs during the triumph," says a young man at your table, his eyes bright with amusement. "One went something like, 'Romans, watch your wives. Here's the bald adulterous whore. We pissed away your gold in Gaul and come to borrow more.'" There's nervous laughter around the table. Caesar's reputation as a womanizer is well known, as is his early baldness, which he tries to hide, but mocking the most powerful man in Rome, even repeating jokes made by his own soldiers, feels dangerous. "Careful," murmurs an older woman, her hands wrapped around her cup as if seeking its warmth despite the summer heat. The political winds in Rome change quickly. Yesterday's joke might be tomorrow's treason. You nod in agreement, feeling the weight of living in uncertain times. The Republic is changing before your eyes, but into what? No one can say. Over the next few days, you watch as Caesar holds 3 more triumphs for his victories in Egypt, Asia Minor, and North Africa. The spectacle continues, though none match the grandeur of the first triumph for Gaul. In the Egyptian triumph, you notice a young woman among the captives who draws sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. This is Arsinoe, sister of Queen Cleopatra of Egypt. Unlike the unfortunate Vercingetorix, who was strangled after the first triumph, Arsinoe is spared by Caesar when the crowd calls for mercy. She's sent to live in a Roman temple instead, a far better fate than most captives can expect. The final triumph, celebrating Caesar's victory in North Africa, takes an unsettling turn. Rather than focusing on his defeat of King Juba of Numidia, the paintings carried in the procession depict the deaths of Roman senators who opposed Caesar in the civil war. One shows the Pompeian general Scipio stabbing himself and falling into the sea. Another depicts the senator Cato ripping out his own intestines rather than submit to Caesar. The crowd grows quiet, uncomfortable with these graphic reminders that Romans killed Romans in the recent conflict. This doesn't feel like a celebration of Roman glory, but rather a display of Caesar's power over his defeated enemies. When the young son of King Juba appears in the procession, a child no more than 6 years old destined for execution, the crowd's mood shifts decisively. People begin to shout for mercy, and Caesar, sensitive to public opinion, grants it. The boy will be raised and educated in Rome instead. As the triumphs end and normal life in the city resumes, you begin to hear about the changes Caesar is implementing. Using his position as dictator and consul, he's pushing through legislation at an unprecedented pace. One evening, you're sitting in the small courtyard of your apartment building, enjoying the relative coolness as the day's heat dissipates. Your neighbour, a scribe who works for a senator, joins you with a pitcher of wine and 2 cups. Caesar's completely reshaping the Senate, he says, pouring the ruby liquid carefully. He's appointed hundreds of new senators, retired centurions from his legions, aristocrats from Italian towns, even some Gauls. Gauls, you ask, surprised. In the Roman Senate? Roman citizens of Gallic origin, your neighbour clarifies, taking a sip of his wine. They speak Latin, dress like Romans, but yes, they're ethnically Gallic. It's causing quite the stir. There's a joke going around that the Gauls have crossed the Pomerium and are asking for directions to the Senate House. You laugh, but the implications are serious. The Roman Senate, once the exclusive domain of old patrician families, is being transformed. Caesar is installing people loyal to him throughout the government. He's also reforming the grain dole, your neighbour continues. Cutting the number of recipients in half, but making sure those who do receive it are truly the poorest citizens. That sounds sensible, you observe. It is, but it's also politically shrewd. It restores fairness to the system and cuts costs, which pleases the Conservatives, but it doesn't eliminate the programme entirely, which would anger the common people. As the weeks pass, the summer heat gradually gives way to the cooler days of autumn. The city settles into a new rhythm under Caesar's leadership. There's a feeling of stability that's been missing during the years of civil war, but also an undercurrent of tension. The Republic still exists in name, but power is increasingly concentrated in the hands of one man. Then, just as life seems to be normalising, something extraordinary happens. Caesar announces a complete reform of the calendar. You learn about this while visiting the Forum, where a public announcement is being read aloud to a gathered crowd. The current Roman calendar based on lunar cycles has become hopelessly out of sync with the actual seasons. Religious festivals meant to mark the harvest are occurring while crops are still growing. The confusion affects everything from agriculture to commerce to religious observances. By the authority of Julius Caesar, Pontifex Maximus and Dictator of Rome, the herald proclaims, his voice carrying across the Forum, a new calendar will be instituted beginning on the first day of January in the coming year. This calendar will follow the solar year. with 365 days divided into 12 months. There are murmurs in the crowd. Most people understand the need for calendar reform, but the next announcement causes real surprise. To align the current calendar with the solar year, the remaining months of this year will be extended. 2 additional months will be added between November and December for a total of 445 days in the current year. Now the crowd erupts in confusion. 3 extra months. How will this affect contracts, interest payments, magistrates' terms of office? You make your way to a food stall at the edge of the forum where people are gathering to discuss this news. The smell of roasting chestnuts fills the air as the vendor stirs them in a metal pan over hot coals. "This is madness," complains a merchant, his expensive tunic marking him as a man of means. "I have loans coming due at the end of the year. Now I have to wait 3 more months for repayment. Better that than having a calendar that makes no sense," argues a farmer, his sun-darkened face creased with worry lines. "How can I plan planting when the calendar says it's spring but the weather says it's still winter?" You buy a small bag of hot chestnuts, their warmth pleasant against your palms as the evening grows cooler. As you peel and eat them, savouring their sweet, earthy flavour, you listen to the debate continuing around you. "Caesar learned about this calendar in Egypt," says an educated-looking man with a Greek accent. "The Egyptians have been using a solar calendar for centuries. It's far more accurate." "Of course he'd adopt something from Egypt," someone mutters. "He spent enough time there with Queen Cleopatra." There are knowing chuckles. Caesar's affair with the young Egyptian queen is common knowledge, as is the rumour that she bore him a son. As you walk home through the darkening streets, you consider what this change means. The year 46 BCE will be the longest in human history. 445 days instead of the usual 355. No wonder people are calling it the Year of Confusion. But there's something appropriate about it too. Rome itself is in a period of transition, stretching and changing as it grows from a republic into something new. The extended year seems to mirror this transformation, a necessary disruption on the path to a more orderly future. In your small apartment, you light an oil lamp, its gentle flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, the sounds of the city are quieting as night falls. You lie down on your simple bed, pulling the wool blanket up against the autumn chill. As your body relaxes into the mattress stuffed with wool and dried herbs, you think about the strange time you're living through. Caesar has returned to Rome in triumph, instituted sweeping reforms, and now even changed how Romans measure time itself. What will this mean for the future of Rome? What will happen when this extraordinary year finally ends? As these questions drift through your mind, your breathing slows and sleep begins to claim you. Tomorrow is another day in the longest year in human history, and who knows what it will bring? Your eyelids grow heavy as the distant sounds of the city fade away. The weight of your body sinks deeper into the mattress, and the rhythmic pattern of your breathing becomes slower, more regular. The questions about Caesar and Rome and time itself begin to blur and fade, carried away on the gentle current of approaching sleep. And as you drift off, you feel strangely at peace, knowing that you're living through a moment that people will remember for thousands of years to come. The year that Julius Caesar stretched time itself to bring order to the world. You wake to the sound of rain pattering against your shutters. The morning light is dim, filtered through clouds that have gathered overnight, bringing a welcome respite from the autumn heat. For a moment, you lie still, listening to the gentle rhythm of water against wood, feeling the comfortable weight of your blanket across your body, and savouring that peaceful transition between sleep and wakefulness. Today is the first day of the intercalary month, one of the extra months Caesar has added to stretch the year to 445 days. Outside, Rome continues as always, but there's something strange about living through time that wasn't supposed to exist. These bonus days feel like a gift, or perhaps a burden, depending on your perspective. As you rise and prepare for the day, pulling on a heavier tunic against the cooler weather, you wonder how this calendar reform is affecting others throughout the city. For those who pay rent monthly, it means additional payments. For officials elected to annual positions, their terms have been unexpectedly extended. For farmers and merchants whose business follows seasonal patterns, it's a time of adjustment and recalculation. You splash your face with cool water from a clay basin, the shock of it clearing away the last cobwebs of sleep. After a quick breakfast of bread dipped in olive oil and a handful of dried figs, you decide to visit the forum to hear the latest news and perhaps catch a glimpse of Caesar himself, who seems to be everywhere these days, pushing through one reform after another. The rain has stopped by the time you step outside, but the streets are slick with mud and puddles. You navigate carefully, sidestepping the worst of it, your leather sandals offering little protection against the wet. The air smells fresh and clean, the usual city odours of smoke, waste, and too many bodies temporarily washed away. In the forum, a crowd has gathered around a public notice board where the details of Caesar's calendar reform are posted. You edge your way through the press of bodies until you can see the inscription. According to the notice, the new calendar will have 365 days divided into 12 months. Unlike the old lunar calendar with its 355 days that required periodic adjustments, this solar calendar will closely track the actual year. Every fourth year, a single extra day will be added to February. A much simpler system than the occasional intercalary months of the past. More revolutionary still, this adjustment will happen automatically without requiring the Pontifex Maximus, Caesar's religious title, to make a political decision about when to add days. For years, Roman politicians had manipulated the calendar for their own purposes, extending their time in office or cutting short the terms of rivals by controlling when extra days were added. It's not just about accuracy, says a well-dressed man standing next to you who notices your interest in the announcement. It's about taking power away from the politicians. The calendar will run by itself now, following the sun rather than the whims of men. You nod, seeing the wisdom in this. Caesar, despite being accused of amassing too much power for himself, is actually removing one tool of political manipulation from future leaders, including himself. The calendar will belong to nature, not to men. As you turn away from the notice board, you bump into an older man wearing the distinctive toga of a senator, one of the traditional aristocrats, judging by his haughty expression and the quality of the wool. "Excuse me," you murmur, stepping aside. The senator barely acknowledges you, continuing a heated conversation with his companion. "It's an insult to Rome," he's saying. "Gauls in the Senate, men whose grandfathers painted their faces blue and sacrificed humans to their barbaric gods." "They're Roman citizens," his companion points out, a younger man whose practical expression suggests he might be more of an advisor than a friend. "They speak Latin, they follow Roman customs. They're still Gauls," the senator interrupts, "and they're Caesar's men, every one of them. Along with those Italian town councillors and retired centurions he's elevated. The Senate has quadrupled in size, and 3/4 of it owes personal loyalty to Caesar." You drift away, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping on senatorial gossip, but the conversation confirms what everyone already knows. Caesar is reshaping Rome's political landscape, bringing in new blood and diluting the power of the old aristocratic families who have dominated the Senate for generations. Your stomach growls, reminding you that it's approaching midday. Following the aroma of cooking food, you make your way to a thermopolium, one of the many food stalls that serve hot meals to Rome's working population. Most apartment buildings like yours lack proper cooking facilities, making these establishments essential to city life. The thermopolium consists of a stone counter with large terracotta jars sunk into it, keeping food hot or cold as needed. You point to a pot of steaming lentil stew, and the proprietor ladles a generous portion into a bowl for you, handing over a small copper coin. You take your lunch to a bench and sit down to eat. The stew is thick and hearty, flavoured with garlic, olive oil and herbs. You tear off chunks of bread to scoop it up, savouring the simple but satisfying meal. As you eat, you listen to the conversations around you. "My cousin's in Caesar's 10th Legion," says a young man to his companion, "says every soldier got paid a silver talent after the triumphs. That's 15 years' wages all at once. And didn't Caesar give every citizen 4 months' pay as well?" asks his friend. "He did. My father used it to finally fix the roof of our shop, but the soldiers got much more. Well, they fought for him in Gaul and against Pompey. Makes sense they'd get the bigger reward." You finish your stew, wiping the bowl clean with the last piece of bread. Caesar's generosity with his triumph money has certainly won him popularity with both the common people and his veterans. But such massive spending raises questions about his ultimate goals. Is he simply rewarding loyalty or buying it? As you leave the forum, you pass one of the city's many construction sites. Caesar has announced ambitious building projects throughout Rome. A new forum, expanded public facilities, and infrastructural improvements. The sound of hammers and saws fills the air, along with the grunts and shouts of workmen. Stone dust hangs in the damp air, coating your throat as you pass. Many of these workers, are Caesar's veterans, those too old or injured to continue military service but still able-bodied enough for construction work. It's a clever solution to multiple problems. Rome gets needed improvements, the veterans get employment, and Caesar fulfills his obligation to provide for his former soldiers. But there's another aspect to Caesar's veteran policy that's causing more controversy. He's promised land to those retiring from service, farmland where they can settle and support themselves for the rest of their lives. This was a traditional reward for military service, but finding enough land for the approximately 22,000 veterans currently due for retirement is no small challenge. You learn more about this as you visit the baths later in the afternoon. The public baths are Rome's social centres, where people of different classes mingle, exchange news and conduct business, all while getting clean. For a small fee, you enter the complex and move through its sequence of rooms. First comes the tepidarium, a warm room where you begin to sweat gently. The heated floors feel wonderful against your bare feet, and the warm air envelops you like a comforting embrace. You shed your clothes, handing them to an attendant who will watch over them while you bathe. Next is the caldarium, the hot room with its steaming pool. The heat here is intense, opening your pores and drawing out impurities. Sweat drips down your body as you sit on a marble bench, letting the heat penetrate deep into your muscles, easing any tension or stiffness. The air is thick with steam and the scent of perfumed oils. In this room, conversations tend to be languid, punctuated by comfortable silences as bathers surrender to the heat. But today, two men nearby are discussing Caesar's land distribution plan with unexpected energy. He's buying land from struggling farmers at above-market prices, one explains. It's a voluntary program, so no one's being forced to sell, but the prices are good enough that many are taking the offer. Clever, his companion replies, wiping sweat from his brow. The failing farmers get a bailout, and Caesar gets land for his veterans without seizing it by force, as Sulla did. It still won't be enough, though. There are too many veterans needing land. It will take years to settle them all. After sufficiently heating your body in the caldarium, you move to the frigidarium, where you plunge into a cold pool. The shock of it takes your breath away momentarily, but then brings an invigorating sense of cleanliness and renewal. Your skin tingles pleasantly as you emerge, and a slave approaches with towels to dry you. Clean and refreshed, you head to the final part of the bathing experience, the unctuarium, where oils are applied to the skin. As the attendant rubs scented oil into your back and shoulders with practiced hands, you overhear more political talk. Caesar's essentially creating colonies of veterans loyal to him throughout Italy, a distinguished-looking man is saying as his own attendant works on his feet. These men have fought for him for years. They'll support his policies in the local assemblies and come to his aid if needed. You make it sound like he's preparing for conflict, his companion observes. The civil war is over. Pompey is dead. Cato is dead. The Optimates are defeated. For now, the first man says quietly. But Caesar has enemies still, even among those who smile to his face in the Senate. The conversation turns to other topics, but the words linger in your mind as you finish your time at the baths. Caesar's power seems secure, but undercurrents of tension remain in Roman society. The old aristocracy, though diminished, has not disappeared entirely. Weeks pass, and you adjust to the strange rhythm of the extended year. The 2 additional months inserted between November and December, intercalaris prior and intercalaris posterior as they're being called, create an odd sense of time suspended, as if you're living through days that shouldn't exist. The weather grows colder as winter approaches. Your apartment, like most insular dwellings, has no heating system beyond a small brazier where you can burn charcoal on the coldest days. You begin wearing multiple layers of tunics and wrapping yourself in a thick woolen cloak when you venture outside. One evening, as you're returning home from work, you're a clerk for a merchant who imports wine from Greece. You pass a group of Caesar's Gallic senators. They're easy to identify by their accents and by the subtle differences in their dress, slightly more colourful than traditional Roman attire. Despite the jokes and prejudice they face, these men carry themselves with dignity, clearly aware of their historic role as the first non-Italians to sit in the Roman Senate. You notice that they're accompanied by guards, a prudent precaution given the hostility some Romans still show toward foreigners in positions of power. The sight reminds you of how Rome is changing. The city has always absorbed people from conquered territories, but now these provincials are reaching the highest levels of government. Winter deepens, and the extended year continues. The strange inserted months create confusion in many aspects of daily life. Religious festivals occur at unusual times, business contracts require renegotiation, government officials serve longer terms than expected. But there's also a sense of anticipation. When the new calendar begins on January 1st, things will reset. The year will align with the seasons again. The chaos of the transition will give way to a more predictable pattern. During this extended winter, you often visit one of Rome's many taverns in the evening. These simple establishments serve wine and basic food, but more importantly, they provide warmth, light, and company during the long, cold nights. Your favourite tavern is a small place near the Tiber River, frequented by a mix of craftsmen, minor merchants, and clerks like yourself. The owner, a burly man named Marcus with a ready laugh and an uncanny memory for his customers' preferred wine mixtures, keeps the place clean and the atmosphere friendly. Tonight you're sitting at a table with several regulars, warming your hands on a cup of mulled wine spiced with honey and cinnamon. The hot drink spreads pleasant warmth through your chest as you sip it. Outside, a cold rain falls, drumming on the roof and occasionally gusting through the doorway when someone enters or leaves. "I heard something interesting today," says Lucius, a carpenter who works on one of Caesar's building projects. "They say Caesar's not stopping with the calendar. He's got plans for a new public library to rival the one in Alexandria." "Makes sense," replies Tertia, a cloth merchant's widow who runs his business with remarkable success. "He spent enough time in Egypt to see the value of their library. They say it holds hundreds of thousands of scrolls from all over the world. He's appointed that scholar Varro to start collecting books," Lucius continues. "You know, the one who wrote all those volumes on agriculture and the Latin language." "Caesar has ambitious plans for Rome," Marcus comments as he refills your cups. "Not just buildings, but institutions, schools, libraries, public works. He's thinking beyond his own lifetime." The conversation turns to speculation about Caesar's ultimate intentions. Does he plan to become king, as some rumours suggest? Will he restore full power to the Senate once the emergency of the civil war has fully passed? Or is Rome transitioning to a new form of government entirely, neither republic nor monarchy, but something in between? No one has answers, only opinions, and the discussion remains friendly even when views differ sharply. That's one thing you appreciate about this tavern. People can disagree without becoming enemies, if only the same could be said for Rome's political class. As the evening progresses, the warmth of the tavern and the wine makes you drowsy. The constant patter of rain outside creates a soothing backdrop to the murmur of conversations. Your eyelids grow heavy, and you decide it's time to make your way home before you fall asleep at the table. Bidding goodnight to your companions, you wrap your cloak tightly around you and step out into the wet night. The rain has lessened to a gentle drizzle, but the streets are dark and slick. You navigate carefully by the light of occasional oil lamps hanging outside buildings and the dim glow from windows. The walk home gives you time to reflect on all you've learned about Caesar's reforms. The calendar is just one piece of a larger vision, a more efficient, centralized government, a Rome that embraces talented people regardless of their origin, a city of grand public buildings and institutions. Whatever one thinks of Caesar personally, his plans for Rome are undeniably impressive in their scope and ambition. By the time you reach your apartment building, you're damp and chilled despite your cloak. You climb the narrow stairs to your third-floor room, your legs heavy with fatigue. Inside, you light an oil lamp, its warm glow creating a small circle of comfort in the darkness. Your room is simple, but adequate. A bed, a table and stool, a chest for your clothes, and a small shrine to the household gods in one corner. You add a few drops of oil to the shrine and murmur a brief prayer of thanks for another day safely concluded. As you prepare for bed, removing your damp outer clothes and changing into a dry sleeping tunic, you listen to the sounds of your neighbours through the thin walls. A child crying, a couple arguing in low voices, someone snoring already. The building houses dozens of people, most of them working-class Romans like yourself, all living in close proximity. You slide under the covers of your bed, pulling the woolen blankets up to your chin against the chill. The mattress, stuffed with wool and herbs, cradles your tired body. You've grown used to its lumps and dips over the years, and now find them oddly comforting, like the familiar embrace of an old friend. As you lie there, watching the lamp flame cast dancing shadows on the wall, your thoughts drift to the future. What will Rome be like when the calendar finally resets? Will the new year bring stability or more changes? And what of Caesar himself? Will his power continue to grow, or will there be a return to the more balanced government of the traditional republic? The questions swirl in your mind, but they begin to lose their sharp edges as fatigue overtakes you. Your breathing slows and deepens. The distant sounds of the city, even at night, Rome is never completely quiet, blend into a gentle background hum. Your awareness of your body begins to fade. First, your toes and fingers grow distant, then your limbs become heavy and warm. The weight of the blankets seems to increase, pressing you gently into the mattress. Each breath becomes slower, deeper, more rhythmic. The lamp flame flickers, growing dimmer as the oil runs low. Your eyelids grow heavier with each blink, until finally they remain closed. The questions about Rome and Caesar and time itself begin to dissolve, replaced by the formless images that precede dreams. And as sleep claims you fully, your last conscious thought is that you're living through history, not just reading about it or hearing stories, but experiencing it directly. The longest year in human history continues its slow unfolding, and tomorrow will bring another day in Caesar's Rome, another step toward whatever future the great general envisions for the eternal city. Morning light filters through your shutters, casting thin golden bars across your simple room. You wake slowly, consciousness returning like a gentle tide washing over you. For a moment you lie still, feeling the weight of your body against the mattress, listening to the familiar sounds of your apartment building coming to life. Footsteps on the stairs, voices calling, the clatter of pottery as someone prepares breakfast. It's been several weeks since the beginning of Intercalaris Posterior, the second of the 2 extra months Caesar added to the year. The novelty of living through bonus time has worn off, replaced by a collective impatience for the extended year to end and the new calendar to begin. You rise and move to the small window, pushing open the wooden shutters. The winter air rushes in, cold and bracing against your sleep-warm skin. From your third-floor apartment, you have a view over the tiled rooftops of neighbouring buildings toward one of Rome's 7 hills. The sky is clear today, a pale winter blue, and sunlight glints off frost that still clings to shaded areas. As you dress and prepare for the day, you think about the changes you've witnessed in Rome over these extended months. Caesar seems to be everywhere at once, pushing through reform after reform, reshaping not just the calendar, but Rome's entire political and social structure. After a quick breakfast of leftover bread dipped in watered wine, you head out into the city. Today is market day, and you need to replenish your supplies. The narrow streets are already crowded despite the early hour, filled with people going about their business. Your breath forms small clouds in the cold air as you make your way toward the marketplace. The Forum Market is a riot of colour, sound and smell. Vendors call out their wares in sing-song voices. The aroma of fresh bread mingles with the pungent scent of fish, the earthy smell of vegetables and the sweet perfume of winter fruits imported from warmer regions. You move through the crowd, stopping to examine the goods, haggling over prices and gradually filling your small cloth bag with purchases. At a vegetable stall, you overhear 2 men discussing Caesar's latest political manoeuvrings. He's rewritten the laws governing the provinces, one says, a middle-aged man with the calloused hands of a craftsman. Any governor convicted of corruption will be automatically expelled from the Senate. About time, his companion replies, selecting a head of cabbage and examining it critically. Those nobles treat provincial assignments like personal money-making opportunities, bleed the locals dry, then come back to Rome to buy elections with their ill-gotten gains. Caesar knows firsthand what that does. He spent years in Gaul, says corrupt governors turn the locals against Rome, create rebellion. You move on to a baker's stall, where the smell of fresh bread makes your stomach growl despite your recent breakfast. As you wait your turn, you notice a group of soldiers nearby, veterans of Caesar's legions by their bearing and the way they speak of military matters with easy familiarity. Any word on when the land distributions will start? One asks, a weathered man with a scar running along his jawline. My centurion says it's already happening in some areas, replies another, but there are thousands of us waiting. It'll take time. At least we got our bonus pay. 15 years' wages all at once. Never thought I'd see that much silver in my life. Just don't lose it all to wine and dice before you get your farm, laughs a third, clapping his friend on the shoulder. After completing your marketing, you decide to walk past the construction site of Caesar's new forum. The existing Roman forum has become overcrowded as the city has grown, and Caesar is using some of his Gallic war spoils to build a magnificent new public space. The site is a hive of activity. Hundreds of workers move about like ants, hauling stone, mixing mortar, measuring and cutting with precision. The foundation is already in place, and the lower walls are beginning to rise. When complete, the Forum Iulium will include a temple to Venus Genetrix, the goddess Caesar claims as his ancestor, surrounded by colonnaded porticos housing shops and government offices. Many of the workers, you notice, are Caesar's veterans, men too old or injured to farm but still strong enough for construction work. Caesar takes care of his own, people say, and these men who fought for him in Gaul and against Pompey now help build his vision of a new Rome. As you watch the construction, a well-dressed man stops beside you. From his toga and the quality of the wool, you can tell he's of equestrian rank. Not quite senatorial, but certainly wealthy. Impressive, isn't it, he says, following your gaze to the rising walls. You nod, a little surprised to be addressed by someone of his status. I'm a contractor, he explains, noting your confusion. Caesar's building projects have been good for business. He gestures toward the site. That's my team working on the eastern portico. It looks like it will be magnificent when completed, you offer. Indeed. Say what you will about Caesar's politics. The man thinks big. This is just one of dozens of projects he's commissioned. Rome will be transformed by the time he's finished. If he has time to finish, you say without thinking, then immediately regret the words. Even casual references to Caesar's mortality could be interpreted as treasonous in these sensitive times, but the contractor just chuckles. He's certainly trying to cram a lot into his 10-year dictatorship, though between us I doubt he plans to step down when the term ends. Before you can respond, he nods a farewell and moves off toward the construction site, presumably to check on his team's progress. His words stay with you as you continue your walk through the city. Caesar's 10-year dictatorship is unprecedented. The position was traditionally a 6-month emergency appointment. The extended term, combined with his 5-year consulship and various other powers the Senate has granted him, gives Caesar extraordinary authority. Is he using this authority to save the Republic by reforming it, as his supporters claim, or is he slowly transforming Rome into a monarchy with himself as king in all but name, as his critics fear? The question divides Rome, with passionate advocates on both sides. By midday, the winter sun has taken the edge off the morning chill. You find yourself near the Field of Mars, where Caesar has another ambitious project underway. He plans to divert the Tiber River to create more usable land and to build a massive stone theatre to rival Pompeii's famous one. The area is bustling with surveyors taking measurements and making calculations. You pause to watch them work, fascinated by the precision of their instruments and the careful way they record their findings on wax tablets. One of the surveyors, noticing your interest, beckons you closer. Curious about what we're doing? He asks, a friendly man with ink-stained fingers and a scholar's pale complexion. A little, you admit. I've heard Caesar plans to change the course of the Tiber itself. Among other things, the surveyor nods. It's all part of his broader vision for Rome. Did you know he's commissioned the first complete map of the empire? He's sent surveyors to every province to measure and record. Why? You ask, genuinely curious. Knowledge is power. the surveyor says simply. How can Rome govern efficiently without knowing what it governs, how large the territories are, what resources they contain, how many people live there? He gestures to his instruments. Caesar understands the value of precision, of accurate measurement, whether it's land, time, or resources. The mention of time reminds you of the calendar reform, the most immediate way in which Caesar's love of precision affects daily life in Rome. The new calendar, you say? Your more CDC. How exactly will it work? I've heard different explanations. The surveyor's face lights up. Clearly, this is a topic he enjoys discussing. It's brilliantly simple, really. 365 days in a normal year divided into 12 months. January, March, May, July, August, October, and December will have 31 days. April, June, September, and November will have 30. February alone will have 28. And the leap year, you ask, having heard this term used to describe the adjustment mechanism. Every fourth year, February will gain an extra day, a leap day, making that year 366 days long. This will keep the calendar aligned with the solar year with remarkable precision. More precise than the old calendar? Infinitely more so. The old calendar was always drifting out of alignment with the seasons. That's how we ended up 3 months off, requiring this year of confusion to reset everything. He shakes his head in admiration. Caesar learned this system in Egypt, where they've been using a solar calendar for centuries. With a few refinements, it will serve Rome for generations to come. As you thank the surveyor and continue on your way, you reflect on how the calendar reform exemplifies Caesar's approach to governance. Practical, efficient, based on the best available knowledge, and designed to work automatically without requiring constant political intervention. The afternoon is advancing, and the winter sun is already beginning its early descent toward the horizon. You decide to visit one of Rome's public libraries before heading home. Though not as vast as the one in Alexandria that Caesar so admired, Rome has several collections of scrolls available to the educated public. The library is housed in a modest building near the Forum. Inside, the air is noticeably warmer than outside and has that distinctive smell of papyrus, ink, and the cedar oil used to preserve the scrolls. A few readers sit at tables, carefully studying unrolled texts in the good light near the windows. Others browse the labelled cabinets that hold the scrolls, organised by subject and author. You're not looking for anything specific, just a pleasant way to spend an hour before the winter darkness falls. As you scan the collection, a title catches your eye. On the Civil War by Julius Caesar himself. Curious, you retrieve the scroll and find a seat at an empty table. The text is Caesar's own account of the conflict against Pompey and the Senate faction, written in the third person, as if he were an observer rather than the central figure. His Latin is famously clear and direct, without the elaborate flourishes many Roman authors favour. Reading it feels almost like listening to someone tell a story around a campfire, albeit a story of armies, sieges, and political manoeuvring. What strikes you most is how Caesar presents himself, always reasonable, forced into conflict by the actions of others, concerned primarily with the welfare of Rome rather than personal power. Whether this is an accurate self-assessment or carefully crafted propaganda is for readers to decide. You're so absorbed in the text that you don't notice the time passing until the library attendant begins lighting oil lamps against the gathering dusk. Carefully rolling the scroll and returning it to its cabinet, you thank the attendant and step outside into the cold evening air. The streets are less crowded now as people retreat to their homes for the evening meal. Oil lamps and cooking fires create warm glows behind windows, the smell of various dinners being prepared. Fish stews, boiled grains, roasting meats for the wealthy fills the air, making your stomach remind you that it's been hours since your simple breakfast. You stop at a small cook shop on your way home, where a few coins buy you a bowl of hot lentil stew with bits of salted pork served with a chunk of fresh bread. You eat standing at the counter alongside labourers and clerks like yourself, savouring the warmth of the food in your belly as much as the taste. Feeling fortified against the cold night, you continue homeward. The streets are becoming darker as night falls fully, and you move carefully on the uneven paving stones. Rome has no public street lighting, and while some wealthy neighbourhoods have slaves posted with torches at intervals, most areas rely on pedestrians to bring their own light or navigate in darkness. You're passing through a narrow street between tall, insular apartment buildings when you hear raised voices ahead. Slowing your pace, you make out two men arguing, their words echoing off the close-set walls. "It's an insult to Rome," one is saying, his voice slurred with wine. "Kings are for barbarians, not Romans. Our ancestors threw out Tarquin for a reason. Caesar's not calling himself king," the second man replies, sounding more sober but equally passionate. "He's dictator by legal appointment of the Senate for 10 years and consul for 5, with powers no man has ever held before. If it looks like a kingship and acts like a kingship, he's saved Rome from civil war. He's bringing order, reform. He's bringing tyranny," the first man interrupts, "and some of us won't stand for it." You quicken your pace, head down, not wanting to be seen listening to what sounds like seditious talk. As you pass the men, you notice they both wear togas, senators, or at least men of rank, not common street agitators. The conversation confirms what everyone knows, but few say openly. Despite Caesar's popularity with the common people and his veterans, significant opposition remains among the traditional aristocracy. Finally reaching your apartment building, you climb the worn wooden stairs to your third-floor room. The building creaks and sighs around you, a chorus of household sounds, conversations, babies crying, someone singing softly, the clatter of cooking utensils, filtering through thin walls. In your room, you light your small oil lamp and prepare for the evening. You unpack your market purchases, placing the perishables in the coolest corner. You lay out your clothes for tomorrow and check that your writing implements are ready for your clerk's duties in the morning. These simple, routine tasks complete, you settle on your bed with a small cup of watered wine, letting your mind wander over the day's experiences and conversations. Caesar's Rome is a city in transformation, physically, politically, even in how it measures time itself. The extended year continues its slow unfolding, each extra day bringing the new calendar closer. As you sip your wine, you hear a commotion in the street below. Setting down your cup, you move to the window and look out. A messenger is running from building to building, stopping to shout news before moving on. You strain to hear his words as he approaches your building. "News from Spain," the messenger calls. "Revolt in the provinces. Pompey's sons have raised an army. The Spanish legions have gone over to them." The news sends a ripple of exclamation through the street. People emerge from buildings to question the messenger or discuss the implications with neighbours. Just when it seemed the civil war was truly over, this new threat emerges. You close your shutters against the cold night air and the disturbing news. So the war isn't over after all. Caesar will have to fight again, this time against Pompey's sons and his former right-hand man Labienus, who apparently survived the African campaign. Will Rome never know peace? The thought is disheartening. You finish your wine and prepare for bed, removing your outer tunic and washing your face and hands in the basin of cool water. The routine is comforting in its familiarity, a small island of personal control in a world where larger events unfold beyond your influence. As you lie down, pulling the woolen blankets up against the winter chill, you wonder what this new conflict will mean for Rome and for Caesar's reforms. Will the extended year, already strange and somewhat disorienting, now be marked by anxiety about another civil war? Your body begins to relax into the mattress, the tension of the day slowly releasing from your muscles. Outside, the sounds of the city are muted by darkness and the closed shutters. Your breathing naturally slows and deepens. Despite the troubling news, fatigue begins to overtake concern. Your eyelids grow heavy and your thoughts become less focused, drifting like leaves on a gentle stream. The weight of the blankets feels good against your body, a comforting pressure that seems to encourage the surrender to sleep. As consciousness begins to fade, your last coherent thought is that tomorrow will bring more news, more developments in the ever-unfolding story of Rome and its ambitious dictator. But for now, in the quiet darkness of your room, the wider world recedes, and the realm of dreams opens its welcoming arms. Your breathing falls into the steady rhythm of sleep. Your body feels heavy and warm, sinking deeper into the mattress with each exhale. The small night sounds, a distant dog barking, footsteps on the street, the creaking of the building, blend into a soothing background hum that carries you further into slumber. And so another day in the longest year in human history comes to a close, with the promise of tomorrow's adventures waiting on the other side of the night. You wake to the sound of trumpets echoing through the city streets. For a moment, you lie still, blinking up at the ceiling, trying to orient yourself. The room is cold, the pale light of early morning filtering through cracks in your wooden shutters. The trumpets sound again, followed by the rhythmic march of hobnailed boots on stone, soldiers moving through the streets. Curiosity drives away the last vestiges of sleep. You rise quickly, wrapping your heaviest woolen cloak around your shoulders against the winter chill, and move to the window. Opening the shutters, you lean out to see what's happening below. A column of legionaries is passing through the street, their armour and weapons gleaming in the early light, red cloaks bright against the drab winter cityscape. Their march is disciplined and purposeful, boots striking the paving stones in perfect unison. Behind them come wagons loaded with supplies, food, weapons, tents, all the necessities for an army on the move. "Caesar's leaving for Spain," says a voice. You look up to see your upstairs neighbour leaning from his window, a heavy-set man who works as a butcher in the market. "Word came last night. He's taking the legions to deal with Pompey's sons." The news isn't surprising. Since the messenger's announcement about the Spanish revolt, the city has buzzed with speculation about Caesar's response. Everyone knew he would have to act decisively, but the speed of his mobilization is impressive. The man wastes no time. How many legions, you ask? 8, they say, veterans mostly, men who fought with him in Gaul and against Pompey. You nod, watching as more soldiers march past. 8 legions is a substantial force, around 40,000 men, plus auxiliaries and support personnel. Caesar clearly isn't underestimating the threat posed by Pompey's sons and Labienus. After the troops pass, you prepare for your day. The news of Caesar's departure adds an unexpected tension to the air. Rome without Caesar feels suddenly vulnerable, as if the city has lost its centre of gravity. For all the controversy surrounding his growing power, his presence has provided stability during the extended year of confusion. At work, the small import office where you keep accounts for a wine merchant is abuzz with talk of Caesar's expedition. Your employer, a shrewd businessman who has thrived under Caesar's governance, paces anxiously behind your desk. "This Spanish business is bad timing," he mutters, more to himself than to you. Just when trade was stabilizing after the Civil War, now more fighting, more uncertainty. "Caesar will resolve it quickly," offers another clerk, a young man who openly admires the dictator. "He always does." Perhaps, your employer says, unconvinced. But markets hate uncertainty. And with Caesar gone, who knows what the Senate will do? Some of those old aristocrats have been looking for an opportunity to reassert themselves. You keep your head down, focusing on the columns of figures before you. Political discussions in the workplace can be risky, especially when they touch on sensitive topics like Senate loyalties, but you can't help absorbing the concerns and speculations that flow around you throughout the day. By afternoon, more news has spread through the city. Caesar has appointed loyal subordinates to govern in his absence. Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, his fellow consul, will administer Italy. Various provinces have been assigned to trusted officials, many of them newly appointed senators loyal to Caesar rather than members of the traditional aristocracy. Most surprising is the news that Marcus Junius Brutus has been appointed governor of Cisalpine Gaul, Caesar's old province. Brutus had fought on Pompey's side during the civil war, yet Caesar has not only pardoned him but elevated him to an important governorship. Some see this as evidence of Caesar's magnanimity, others as a calculated move to win over former opponents. As evening approaches, you join the after-work crowds heading to the baths. The public baths remain one of Rome's great democratic institutions where people of different classes mingle freely, exchanging news and opinions while they wash away the day's grime. For the price of a small copper coin, the quadrans, even modest clerks like yourself can enjoy luxuries that would be impossible in your small apartment. The baths are especially welcome in winter when their heated rooms offer escape from the cold. You move through the familiar sequence, undressing in the apoditerium, loosening your muscles in the warm tepidarium, sweating out impurities in the hot caldarium, then bracing yourself for the shock of the cold frigidarium pool. As you sit on a marble bench in the caldarium, letting the heat penetrate deep into your bones, you listen to the conversations echoing off the tiled walls. Caesar's departure for Spain dominates the talk, with opinions divided about what it means for Rome. "It'll be over quickly," says a confident man with a soldier's bearing, possibly a veteran himself. Caesar knows how to move fast. Remember Egypt? In and out, problem solved. Egypt was different, counters an older man, his skin loose and wrinkled with age. He had surprise on his side. Pompey's sons have had time to prepare, and Labienus knows Caesar's tactics better than anyone. He was Caesar's right hand in Gaul. Still, the first man insists. Caesar hasn't lost a campaign yet. I wouldn't bet against him now. Others speculate about Caesar's longer-term plans. Will he return to Rome after Spain and continue his reforms? Or will he launch his long-rumoured campaign against Parthia to avenge Crassus's devastating defeat at Carrhae? The massive Parthian Empire to the east remains the one power that could potentially challenge Rome, and Caesar has made no secret of his ambition to match Alexander the Great's eastern conquests. After thoroughly heating your body in the caldarium, you brace yourself and plunge into the cold pool of the frigidarium. The shock takes your breath away momentarily, but then brings an invigorating sense of cleanliness and renewal. Your skin tingles pleasantly as you emerge, and attendants approach with towels to dry you. Clean and refreshed, you finish your bath with a visit to the unctuarium, where scented oils are applied to your skin, protecting it from the harsh winter air and leaving you with a pleasant fragrance. Fully relaxed now, you dress and prepare to face the cold evening outside. Rather than heading straight home, you decide to visit a tavern for dinner. The thought of your cold, empty apartment holds little appeal on this winter night, and you crave both warm food and company. You choose a modest establishment near the baths, a place that caters to clerks, artisans, and small merchants, people of your own social class. Inside, oil lamps cast a warm golden glow over the rough wooden tables. The air is thick with the aroma of the day's stew simmering in a large pot over the hearth, mingled with the yeasty smell of bread and the sharp tang of wine. Finding a space at a table already occupied by 3 others, you order the house stew and a cup of wine. The tavern keeper, a portly woman with strong arms and a no-nonsense manner, serves you efficiently, placing a steaming bowl before you, along with a chunk of fresh bread and a clay cup of wine mixed with warm water and honey, a welcome comfort on this cold night. As you eat, savouring the rich flavours of the stew, lentils, onions, garlic and small pieces of salted pork, you listen to your tablemates' conversation. They're discussing the practical implications of Caesar's calendar reform, which will take effect when this extended year finally ends. My landlord's trying to charge me rent for all 13 months, complains a young man, his hands stained with the blue dye that marks him as a worker in the textile trade. Says a month is a month, doesn't matter if Caesar added extras. That can't be right, says an older woman with the calloused hands of a weaver. The whole point was to realign the calendar, not to make people pay extra. Take it to the urban praetor if he persists, and spend months waiting for a hearing. By then the new calendar will have started anyway. The third person at the table, a man of middle years with the careful speech of someone with some education, offers his perspective. The confusion will sort itself out once the new calendar is established. That's the beauty of Caesar's reform. It creates a predictable system that runs itself, without requiring political decisions about when to add days. Still doesn't help me with next month's rent, the young dyer grumbles. You sympathise with his predicament. The extended year has created all sorts of practical complications in daily life, not just rent payments, but also loan terms, employment contracts, and scheduled deliveries. The transition is necessary, but undeniably disruptive. As you finish your meal, the tavern grows more crowded and louder as the evening progresses. Wine loosens tongues, and the conversations around you become more animated. Most still centre on Caesar and his departure, but with greater freedom of expression than you'd hear in more public settings. He'll make himself king when he returns from Spain, declares a man loudly from a nearby table. Mark my words, he's already got the power. He just wants the title to match. Romans won't accept a king, someone counters, not after 500 years as a republic. They'll accept whatever Caesar gives them, the first man insists. The plebs love him for his games and grain doles. The soldiers love him for their bonuses and land grants. Who's left to oppose him? A few old senators with more pride than power? The debate continues, growing heated at times but never crossing into truly dangerous territory. This is how Rome processes its political anxieties, through tavern arguments, forum gossip, and private discussions in homes across the city. Finishing your wine, you decide it's time to head home. The hour is growing late and you have work tomorrow. Outside, the night air is bitterly cold, your breath forming clouds before your face. The streets are dark except for the occasional oil lamp hanging outside a wealthy home or the glow of a torch carried by a slave accompanying his master through the night. You walk quickly, partly for warmth and partly for safety. Rome after dark can be dangerous, with thieves and drunks posing threats to solitary pedestrians. The buildings loom like shadows on either side, and your footsteps echo off the stone walls. As you round a corner into a narrower street, you hear voices ahead and see the bobbing light of approaching torches. Instinctively, you step into the recessed doorway of a closed shop, making yourself small and unnoticeable. In nighttime Rome, it's often wiser to avoid encounters with strangers. As the group passes your hiding place, the torchlight reveals 4 men in expensive togas, accompanied by slaves carrying lights and, you note with unease, weapons. The men are engaged in intense conversation, their voices low but their tone urgent. Cannot wait for his return, one is saying. By then it will be too late. He'll have even more veterans loyal to him, more power. The Ides would be fitting, another responds, when he's back from Spain during the festival. They pass beyond earshot before you can hear more, continuing down the street until their torchlight fades into the darkness. You remain in the doorway for a few moments longer, your heart beating faster. The fragment of conversation you overheard was ambiguous but troubling. Were these men discussing some kind of move against Caesar? Deciding it's wiser to forget what you've heard, you continue your journey home, moving more cautiously now through the dark streets. Politics in Rome has always been dangerous, and the safest position for ordinary citizens is to keep their heads down and their opinions private. Finally reaching your apartment building, you climb the familiar stairs, the wooden steps creaking under your weight. The building is quiet at this hour, most of its inhabitants already asleep after long days of work. In your room, you light your small oil lamp, its flame creating a circle of warm light in the darkness. The space feels particularly empty tonight, the silence heavy after the noise and company of the tavern. Through the thin walls, you can hear the gentle snoring of your neighbour and the cry of a baby several apartments away. You prepare for bed with your usual routine, washing your hands and face in a basin of cold water, saying a brief prayer to the household gods at your small shrine, and changing into your sleeping tunic. The familiar rituals are comforting, creating a sense of normality in these unusual times. As you settle onto your bed, pulling the woolen blankets up against the winter chill, you reflect on the day's events and conversations. Caesar is gone to fight yet another campaign, leaving Rome in a state of uncertainty. The extended year continues its slow progress toward completion, and somewhere in the shadows it seems men of rank are whispering of plans that may bring more turmoil to the city. None of this is within your control. You are an ordinary Roman, a small cog in the vast machinery of the empire, carried along by events shaped by men of power and ambition. Your concerns are immediate and personal. Your work, your home, your daily bread. Yet you live in historic times, witnessing changes that will echo through centuries to come. The thought is both humbling and strangely comforting. You are part of something larger than yourself, a civilization in transformation. Whatever happens with Caesar and his opponents, Rome will endure, as it has endured through centuries of triumphs and crises. Your eyelids grow heavy as the day's fatigue catches up with you. The oil lamp flame flickers, casting dancing shadows on the wall. Outside, the night has grown completely quiet, even the usual city sounds muted by darkness and cold. Your breathing slows and deepens, your awareness of your surroundings begins to fade, replaced by the comfortable heaviness of approaching sleep. The weight of the blankets seems to increase, pressing you gently into the mattress. Each breath becomes slower, deeper, more rhythmic. The concerns of the day, Caesar's departure, political uncertainties, calendar complications, begin to dissolve, losing their sharp edges as consciousness ebbs. Your thoughts become less focused, drifting like leaves on a gentle stream. And as sleep claims you fully, your last fleeting thought is of time itself. How strange that you are living through days that, according to the old calendar, shouldn't exist. Extra days, bonus time, a gift or perhaps a burden from Caesar to Rome. Tomorrow will be another of these extraordinary days in the longest year in human history. Another step toward whatever future awaits the eternal city. The days pass slowly in Caesar's absence. Winter gradually loosens its grip on Rome, and tentative signs of spring begin to appear. A few early blossoms in sheltered corners, slightly longer daylight hours, the occasional warm breeze carrying the promise of changing seasons. But the most anticipated change is still to come, the end of the extended year and the beginning of the new calendar. You wake one morning to an unusual sense of anticipation in the air. Today marks the final day of Intercalaris Posterior, the last of the extra months Caesar added to align the calendar with the solar year. Tomorrow will be the calends of January in the year 45 BCE, the first day of the new Julian calendar. After 445 days, the longest year in human history, the period of confusion is ending. A new era of precision and predictability in timekeeping is about to begin. As you prepare for the day, washing your face in cool water that makes your skin tingle with alertness, you hear the sounds of unusual activity in the street below. Looking out your window, you see people gathering, an air of festivity evident in their dress and manner. Though no official celebration has been announced, the people of Rome have spontaneously decided to mark this transition. You dress quickly and head downstairs to join them. The street is filling with neighbours and strangers alike, all drawn by the historic significance of the day. Someone has set up a makeshift stall selling mulsum, wine sweetened with honey, and the aromatic steam rises from the warm cups, mingling with the cool morning air. A cup to mark the last day of confusion, calls the vendor, a jovial man with ruddy cheeks. You hand over a small coin and accept the warm drink, wrapping your fingers around the clay cup and savouring both the heat and the sweet, spicy flavour. "Never thought this year would end," comments an older woman beside you, her grey hair covered with a woolen shawl against the morning chill. "Felt like living in suspended time, didn't it?" You nod in agreement. The extended year has indeed created a strange psychological effect, as if Rome has been existing in a liminal space between old and new, tradition and innovation. Tomorrow, at least in terms of the calendar, normal time will resume. Throughout the day, a festive atmosphere prevails in the city. Though it's not an official holiday, many shops close early and people gather in public spaces to mark the occasion in their own ways. Some make informal offerings at temples, thanking the gods for guiding Rome through this period of transition. Others gather in taverns and homes, sharing food and wine with friends and family. In the forum, you find a crowd listening to a scholar explaining the details of the new calendar system. The man stands on the steps of a temple, projecting his voice over the gathered listeners. "The beauty of Caesar's system," he's saying as you join the audience, "is its mathematical elegance. By establishing a fixed 365-day year with a leap day every fourth year, we achieve remarkable accuracy without requiring constant adjustments." He goes on to explain how the months have been rebalanced, with days added to ensure proper alignment with the solar year. January, March, May, July, named for Julius himself. August, currently still called Sextilis. October and December will each have 31 days. April, June, September, and November will have 30 days each. February alone will have 28 days, except in leap years when it will have 29. Most importantly, the scholar concludes, these adjustments will happen automatically according to fixed rules. No longer will the calendar be subject to political manipulation for extending terms of office or delaying elections. Time itself has been democratized. This draws appreciative murmurs from the crowd. For centuries, the Roman calendar had been a tool of political power, with the Pontifex Maximus and his college of priests deciding when to add intercalary months. Often these decisions were made for political advantage rather than astronomical accuracy. Caesar, ironically, has used his unprecedented political power to remove this particular lever of control from future leaders, including himself. The calendar will now run according to mathematical rules rather than human discretion. As afternoon turns to evening, you join some friends at a neighbourhood tavern to mark the occasion. The place is more crowded than usual, filled with people from different walks of life, all united by this unique historical moment. The warm, yeasty smell of fresh bread mingles with the rich aroma of wine and the savoury scent of the day's stew bubbling in a large pot over the hearth. To the end of confusion, someone toasts, raising a cup, and everyone joins in with a cheer. Conversations flow freely around you, touching on Caesar, the calendar, and the broader changes sweeping through Rome. News from Spain is sporadic, but the latest reports suggest that Caesar is closing in on Pompey's sons and their allies. The campaign is proving more challenging than some expected, but few doubt its eventual outcome. "What happens when Caesar returns?" asks one of your companions, a carpenter who works on the new Forum Julium construction. "Will things go back to normal, or is this the new normal? One man with the power of a king, even without the title." "Caesar's different," argues another friend, a clerk like yourself, but in a government office rather than private business. "He's not interested in being king. He wants to reform Rome, fix what's broken in the Republic. By taking all power for himself," the carpenter counters skeptically. "Some cure." "He's been made dictator for 10 years, your government clerk friend points out. "That means there's an end date to his extraordinary powers, unless the Senate extends them again or makes the dictatorship permanent." The debate continues, but with good humour rather than rancour. These discussions happen everywhere in Rome these days as people try to make sense of the rapidly changing political landscape. The Republic has been transformed, but into what exactly remains unclear. As the evening deepens, you say goodbye to your friends and begin the walk home. The streets are still lively despite the late hour, with impromptu celebrations continuing throughout the city. Oil lamps and torches cast pools of golden light, creating a festive atmosphere despite the lingering winter chill. You pass a small neighbourhood shrine where a group has gathered to make offerings to Janus, the two-faced god of transitions, beginnings and endings. He seems particularly appropriate for this moment, looking back at the old calendar and forward to the new. The sweet smell of incense drifts through the night air, and the murmured prayers blend into a soothing background hum. At home, you light your oil lamp and prepare for bed, feeling a sense of completion that has been absent throughout the extended year. Tomorrow begins a new chapter, not just for the calendar, but perhaps for Rome itself. As you settle under your woolen blankets, their familiar weight comforting against the night's chill, you reflect on all you've witnessed during this remarkable year. Caesar's triumphs and reforms, the reshaping of the Senate, the distribution of land to veterans. And now, this fundamental change to how Romans measure time itself. Whatever one thinks of Caesar's growing power, his vision for Rome is undeniably bold and far-reaching. Your thoughts drift as sleep approaches, your body gradually relaxing into the mattress. The sounds of continuing celebrations outside fade into the background, growing more distant as consciousness begins to slip away. Morning arrives with the first day of January, in the year 45 BCE, the first day of the new Julian calendar. The air feels different somehow, clearer perhaps, though that might be your imagination. The longest year in human history has finally ended, and time has reset itself to a new, more accurate pattern. The next few months bring a gradual return to routine, though routine in Caesar's Rome is a constantly evolving concept. Reports from Spain arrive regularly, chronicling Caesar's campaign against Pompey's sons and Labienus. The fighting is fierce. These opponents know Caesar's tactics well for knowing but the outcome becomes increasingly certain as Caesar's strategic genius and the discipline of his veteran legions prove decisive once again. In March, news arrives of a great victory at Munda. Caesar has defeated the last organised opposition to his rule, effectively ending the civil war that has torn Rome apart for years. Celebrations erupt throughout the city, though they're tempered by reports of the high cost. The battle was hard fought, with heavy casualties on both sides. Caesar called it his most difficult victory, reports a messenger in the forum reading from an official dispatch. Unlike his previous battles where he fought for glory, at Munda he fought for his life. The news brings relief, but also questions. With the civil war truly over, what comes next? Will Caesar finally be able to focus on his domestic reforms without the distraction of military campaigns? Or will he turn his attention to the Parthian frontier, avenging Crassus's defeat as he has long planned? These questions occupy Rome as spring advances, the days growing longer and warmer under the new calendar. Trees burst into leaf, flowers bloom in courtyards and window boxes, and the city seems to exhale after the long tension of war and the strangeness of the extended year. In mid-March, additional news arrives. Caesar is returning to Rome. He has settled affairs in Spain, appointing governors and establishing garrisons to maintain Roman control. Now he comes home in triumph once again, with plans to accelerate his program of reforms. The city prepares for his arrival with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Caesar's supporters anticipate new initiatives and greater stability. His critics worry about further consolidation of power. Everyone recognizes that Rome stands at a crossroads, with its political future hanging in the balance. You observe these preparations with interest as you go about your daily life. The new calendar functions smoothly, its logic and precision already becoming second nature to Romans accustomed to the confusing fluctuations of the old system. This, at least, is one of Caesar's reforms that seems universally appreciated. One evening in early April, as you're walking home from work through the forum, you notice a small group gathered around a public notice board. Curious, you join them to see what has drawn their attention. The notice announces that Caesar has been appointed Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life, by the Senate. This unprecedented honour removes even the theoretical 10-year limit on his extraordinary powers. Caesar is now, in effect, if not in name, the permanent ruler of Rome. The people around you react with varying emotions, some with approval, others with concern, many with simple resignation. The trajectory has been clear for some time. This just makes official what has been increasingly apparent. The Republic, as it existed for 5 centuries, has transformed into something new. "It's a monarchy in all but name," mutters an older man, his face lined with the memories of a different Rome. "The Republic wasn't working," counters a younger woman. "The civil wars proved that. Maybe this is what Rome needs now. One strong leader to prevent more bloodshed." You make no comment, keeping your thoughts private, as is wisest in these unpredictable times. But as you continue your walk home, you reflect on the irony. Caesar, who reformed the calendar to prevent political manipulation of time, has now been granted political power without time limits. Days later, you hear that Caesar has arrived outside Rome, but has not yet entered the city. He's camped with his legions beyond the sacred boundary of the Pomerium, waiting for the Senate to approve another triumph, his 5th, to celebrate his Spanish victory. The prospect of another lavish triumph stirs mixed feelings among Romans. Some look forward to the spectacle and the customary distributions of food and money that accompany such celebrations. Others question the appropriateness of triumphing over fellow Romans, even if they were in rebellion. You decide to visit the Campus Martius, the field outside the city proper where Caesar is encamped. The area is bustling with activity. Soldiers drilling, messengers coming and going, officials meeting with the returning general, and ordinary citizens like yourself coming to witness the historic moment. From a respectful distance, you catch a glimpse of Caesar himself, surrounded by officers and senators. He looks older than when he left for Spain, more weathered by the campaign, yet he moves with the same decisive energy, his gestures quick and authoritative as he gives instructions to those around him. This man has reshaped Rome in countless ways, from the ground beneath your feet to the very measurement of time. The new calendar that now governs your days is perhaps his most practical and lasting achievement, a system so logical and effective that it will serve Rome for centuries to come. As spring advances towards summer, Caesar finally enters Rome and celebrations are held, though not a formal triumph. He immediately throws himself into an ambitious program of legislation, laws governing provincial administration, debt relief, citizenship rights, and public works. Most significantly, he announces plans for a comprehensive codification of Roman law, a single coherent legal system to replace the patchwork of statutes, precedents, and traditions that has accumulated over centuries. Like his calendar reform, this reflects Caesar's passion for clarity, order, and rationality. You learn of these initiatives as they're announced in the forum and discussed in taverns, baths, and households throughout Rome. The pace of change is dizzying, with new proposals emerging almost daily. Caesar seems determined to reshape Rome entirely and to do it quickly. Some whisper that he's in a hurry because he plans to leave soon for a massive campaign against Parthia, fulfilling his long-held ambition to match Alexander's eastern conquests. Others suggest a more concerning reason for his haste, rumours of plots against him, threats from those who see his growing power as tyranny rather than necessary reform. You give little credence to such talk. Rome has always been a city of rumours, especially in times of political tension. Better to focus on your daily life, your work, your home, your friends, than to worry about high politics beyond your influence. And so the days pass, each one properly numbered and named according to the new Julian calendar, each one bringing Rome further from its republican past and closer to its imperial future, though that transformation remains incomplete and uncertain. One mild evening in late spring, you join a group of friends at a neighbourhood tavern, sharing a jug of wine and a platter of simple food, olives, cheese, bread dipped in olive oil. The conversation, as usual these days, turns to Caesar and his latest initiatives. He's planning a new colony at Carthage, reports one friend who works as a secretary to a senator, and another at Corinth. Settlements for his veterans on the sites of cities Rome destroyed in the past. There's symbolism there. New growth from old destruction. And the Great Library? Asks another. Is that still proceeding? Absolutely. Varro is collecting books from throughout the empire. Caesar wants it to rival Alexandria's library. He thinks beyond most men's horizons, comments an older member of your group. The calendar, the law code, the library. These aren't projects for immediate political gain. They're for posterity. If he lives to complete them, someone says quietly. A brief silence falls over the table, the words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Everyone has heard the whispers, the concerns about Caesar's safety. His growing power has created enemies, and his confidence in his popularity may have made him careless about his security. To Caesar, says your friend eventually, raising his cup to break the uncomfortable silence. And to the new calendar that will outlast us all. Everyone drinks to that, the moment of tension passing. The conversation turns to more personal matters, work, family, the small daily concerns that make up most of life even in historic times. Later, walking home under a sky bright with stars, you think about that toast. Whatever happens with Caesar himself, whether he completes his reforms, leaves for Parthia, or meets some other fate, the calendar he created will indeed outlast everyone now living. Centuries from now, people will still measure their days by his system, a silent tribute to the man who reached for absolute power yet also gave humanity a more perfect way to track the passage of time. Back in your apartment, you prepare for bed with your usual routine. The familiar actions are comforting: washing your face and hands, saying a brief prayer at your household shrine, arranging your clothes for tomorrow. These small constants provide stability amid the larger changes sweeping through Rome. As you lie down, pulling the blanket up against the mild spring night, your thoughts drift to the nature of time itself. The longest year in human history has ended, but its effects continue to ripple outward. Caesar stretched time once for a specific purpose, then reset it to a more perfect rhythm. What else might he stretch and reshape in his quest to reform Rome? Your body begins to relax into the mattress, the day's tensions melting away as sleep approaches. Your breathing slows and deepens, falling into the natural rhythm that has carried humans from wakefulness to dreams since time immemorial, regardless of how that time is measured or named. Outside, the eternal city continues its nocturnal murmur, distant voices, the occasional clatter of wheels on stone, a dog barking, all creating the familiar lullaby of urban life. Inside, your awareness gradually narrows to the comfortable weight of your body against the bed, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the slowly diminishing stream of thoughts. And as consciousness fades, your last coherent thought is one of perspective. You are a small part of an immense story, a single life in a civilization spanning centuries. Yet you have witnessed something remarkable, the year that Julius Caesar stretched time itself, forever changing how humanity measures its journey through the cosmos. Your breathing falls into the steady rhythm of sleep. Your muscles release their last holdings of tension. The small night sounds, a neighbour's cough, the creak of the building settling, the soft hoot of an owl, blend into a soothing background hum that carries you further into slumber. And so ends your journey through the longest year in human history. 445 days that changed the world and left a legacy that continues to shape our lives even now as we mark our days according to the calendar that bears Caesar's name. For in a very real sense, we still live in Caesar's time. Each January, each leap year, each precisely measured solar cycle, a testament to the man who looked at the heavens and decided to bring mathematical order to humanity's relationship with the cosmic dance of earth and sun. The year of confusion ended long ago, but the clarity it created endures, a gift from ancient Rome to all who have come after, and that, perhaps, is Julius Caesar's most lasting triumph, not the territories conquered or the battles won, but the simple, elegant way we now track our journey around the sun, a system so effective that it has survived for more than 2 millennia. Time itself became Caesar's legacy, outlasting empires and civilizations, connecting us directly to that remarkable moment when the most powerful man in the world decided to fix the calendar and created the longest year in human history.